Audio check. Everybody can hear me? All right, awesome. Oh my God. Thursday was a nightmare. I got so confused. I couldn't get the audio right. And anyway, I'm glad. Wow, there's a lot of people here already this morning. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. I'm always flattered by the audience when you guys come in. How many people show up, because it just still it amazes me. People come in to get answers to their questions, but mostly just listen to me jibber jabber. It's just so much has happened since Thursday. Of course, Thursday we talked about the recent thing, as Rick is saying here, about a news flash about JIP, as basically they intend to buy the Olympus imaging division. So I wanted to just maybe talk about it a little bit, about that a little bit more, now that it's kind of sunk in over the last few days, and I've kind of gathered my thoughts, because it was a little bit of a shocker to many that happened. Maybe not a shock, but a little bit of a surprise, and it always is, because as I've said many times on my channel, you don't know what companies are doing. The only people that know are the board of directors. So any rumors and all of that stuff is just rumors, until it actually happens. I mean, everybody from the secretaries for the board of directors down to the entire organization have no idea, and they can get a pink slip the next day and it's over. Fortunately, that wasn't the case this time. It was just sold off, I guess. It hasn't happened yet. They can still back out. And, there's still a long way to go. But generally speaking, I don't see any reason for it not to go through at this point, because, Olympus, the imaging division, is not doing terrible, right? They're losing money. And when you look at it in terms of dollars, it seems kind of huge, right? But it's all relative. I don't know what a big number is for Olympus for them to make that kind of decision, that they would let their imaging division go. The other thing, I want to make a little correction, and one of like a lot of things, I read a lot of the forums and watch a lot of other channels, and particularly the ones that have talked about this particular issue. And small correction I need to make is Olympus is not selling the name Olympus. They're selling the brand OMD and Zuiko. I didn't see anywhere that they're selling the word pen, the brand pen, over to JIP. I mean, I assume it's going with it, but who knows, maybe Olympus is keeping the pen division, keeping the pen line up, and just getting rid of OMD and Zuiko lenses, right? So who knows? Maybe they're going to continue making the TG5 series, right? It's just an unknown. So we'll just have to wait and see how it turns out. I always hope for the best. Oh, I didn't get my live chat going here. Without this, I really don't see your comments in the same way. All right, there we go. Olympus input corporate overhead may be the reason for setting. Note that also paragraph 3 operating business with JIP. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fine print, right, that we can go through and figure out. But ultimately, the market's going to dictate what happens, not so much what Olympus and or JIP can do. I mean, if there's no market for cameras or OMDs, it doesn't matter what they plan to do. The market will dictate it for them. Now I'm off center. Gosh darn it. You'd think after, like, almost 100 streams, I'd have this down by now. But like I said, it doesn't matter. Just same with Canon, Nikon, all the other companies. Whatever they plan to do doesn't matter relative to what actually happens, because the market will dictate that. like I said, it remains to be seen. All we can do is hope that they all have the best intentions of continuing the legacy of the OMD and Zuiko lenses, to continue putting out quality products for us in the future, new and improved. So I'm looking forward to that. But I you know, you have to be realistic. The market is going to dictate that. But as of now, we still have terrific cameras, terrific selection of lenses to pull from, you know, for the rest of our lives, indefinitely, in my opinion. You know, the market for used lenses and cameras never go away. You know, I can still go buy a camera from the 1950s if I want. And that's the thing is, as a photographer, it doesn't matter what gear you use. If you know how to use it, you'll be fine, no matter what the camera companies do. If they all went out of business tomorrow, you know, as photographers, we'll be fine. We can just use whatever gear is available and continue to use, make pulls from the used market and the trading market, etc. So I'm content as a photographer you know, for personal stuff. I'd be content with just film, actually. You know, it's a little expensive, but as a photographer, I will still get enjoyment and relaxation, shutter therapy, as Robin Wong would say, by just using a film camera, because I just love photography. So just remember that really it doesn't matter what the camera companies do now and in the future. You know, photography is in your heart, right? And not in the gear. So just be very happy that we have the gear and lenses that we do now, and we'll have access to those for the rest of our lives. You know, for the people that enjoy new gear and new tech and the latest and greatest and the incremental improvements that we've seen, that market's going to go away, right? And that's a little sad, because there are people that just enjoy the technical aspects of gear and the latest technology. You know, like I enjoy not so much in cameras so much, because cameras are a little bit different. I have a little different perspective on that. But like computers, I'm always looking at like the latest gear, and the slight technical improvements, and I'm willing to pay an extra few $100s for that extra 1 or 2% improvement, because of that. You know, that's just how I am about computers. But with camera gear, I'm not as sensitive, right? I'm not as sensitive to noise or megapixels. You know, photography is more about composition and lighting and creating something that, a vision, or capturing that story and I watched Peter's part 2 this morning just before the live stream. And you know, he made a very good point. It's about capturing stories, and creating art with your photography, you know, if you're kind of into that. And that's kind of where I am, and I think most enthusiast photographers is they want to capture their memories and capture those stories and create, you know, visions of how they see things through their camera. And that's always going to be there for us as photographers, and not in the gear. But okay, anyway, let's see. Yeah, we can't jump to any conclusions, so let's just hope for the best, you know. There's certainly a lot of ideas that I might make a video about, that I think maybe we can, as Olympus users, because what's going to keep the OMD brand going, and maybe, who knows, maybe in a few years Olympus will buy it back from Jip, right? They'll say, you guys did a great job, you know, why don't, you know, we'd like to take it back over and continue and buy off some of the staff that you hired, etc. Because I don't like the thought of another camera company buying the brand so much, because they would just kind of cannibalize what Olympus had, for their own, and continue their own, because they got their own brand, you know, to maintain. And it wouldn't make sense to continue two brands that do essentially the same thing, take pictures. So having an investment company take over And if they're a chop shop, which I haven't seen a lot of strong evidence for that, because it's a little bit harder to find when they chop things up and sell it. But the few companies I did see they took over, they still exist today, still under management by the investment company. You know, like I was saying before, Hitachi and NEC are part of NEC, and some food and clothing companies and things. They're still under invest management by the company that they bought, you know, over the last several years. There's some other companies I could find no information on that possibly maybe it was chopped up and sold off, or you know, wasn't viable in the market, you know, so they had to close it down. Like I said, market forces a lot of time dictate the what the outcome of a company anyway, regardless of the investors or company's intent. And for me, like I said, I might you know, put some thoughts together and share some ideas that if JIP is listening, JIP, Japan Industries Partners, is listening, might take, you know, take with a grain of salt, but you know, take some ideas from the people that use the cameras and enthusiasts like us. So I think this is in a small way a good thing for Olympus, in sense of getting the name out there even more than maybe it was before, uh, and bringing out those of us that love the brand and the kind of the quality of the equipment and gear and lenses that they've been producing, to come out and say, you know, hey, keep this going for us. You know, we love these cameras and this system. You know, we're here. You know, make our voices heard that we really love this brand and would like you to continue to make this, you know, a successful venture for you. So and throw some ideas out there, because there's definitely some things that uh, Olympus kind of dropped the ball on with the last few couple of camera releases. You know, like I said, 2015, 16 to me was kind of the pinnacle of Olympus's releases and equipment and gear. That, you know, I still use the gear and equipment from those years, um, and they're great. You know, but okay. Um, yeah, there's still plenty of the gear around to take with us, right? I mean, like I said, in my lifetime, if I want an Olympus camera and use it, I will. I'll always be able to get access to one. What do I have? Maybe 20 years left? And like I said, you can still buy cameras from 50 years ago or more, 70 years ago, that are in good shape and usable. So I don't see why that would change. If anything, in the short term, I feel like Olympus gear might get more expensive. You know, there might be some fire sales on the new gear to reduce inventory because it's just a business, but on the used market, my gosh, I wouldn't be surprised to see a little bit of a price jump, because it's always something to say, yeah, this is a fully original Olympus camera. This is not an OMD from Nuco. This is an OMD from Olympus, you know, made by Olympus for Olympus users. So who knows? You know, it's all perception, right? Uh, yeah, Christopher makes a good point. In the current climate, you know, what other camera company could afford to buy out another one, you know? Um, right now, I think everyone's doing their best to survive the current conditions. Oh, hey, Leon, how are you? Hi, Rob. I like what you're saying. I would have the Ollie 4150 f2.8, but there's no real shipping to South Africa, and I will certainly miss some good deals. Yeah. Yeah, the 40 to 150 2.8 is still on my short list. Two lenses I'm still thinking about, the 8 to 25 and the 40 to 150. I'm holding out for the 8 to 25. Hopefully that still gets released. If not, I'll be okay, but I need that more than I need a 40 to 150 right now. Simon thinks Olympus has missed a trick by not developing competitive video features. The hardware is capable, but video features are lagging behind. A little bit, yeah. Uh, I think for the average person, it's more than enough. You know, the consumer market. Uh, they just never wanted to go high end like Panasonic does. Even Panasonic's, you know, lower end cameras have, you know, superior video capabilities. But those are still capabilities that are very difficult to work with as a consumer unless you have a lot of editing, video editing experience and very, you know, relatively high-end machines to handle the kind of video features that crank out of those cameras. Olympus is still stronger in terms of autofocus and um, I lost my train of thought. There was two things in the video that I feel like Olympus was superior. It's definitely the autofocus side. Well, if it comes to me, I'll bring it. It'll come back. I don't know why that lost me. It was I can't remember my brain. But yeah, there's still a couple of things I think Olympus Video is still superior uh, with respect to Panasonic, and their file sizes and everything are more manageable at all times. You're not going to accidentally trick a setting and record, you know, 10-bit 422 video, which is, you know, you can't do that. If you got a 10-bit 422 video, unless you have a very high-end machine, it's going to take you hours and hours to crank out any kind of edit from that video. And you only record in those kind of specs when you're going to do grading and editing. And that's why they're developing these very high-end machines. Did any of my digital cameras die yet? No, they still work. You know, my EM10 is a little spotty sometimes because, like I said, I've dropped it so many times, but it works fine. Yeah, the brand name will live on. Hopefully OMD and Zuiko. Like I said, I didn't see Pen anywhere yet, but I didn't deep dive into the fine print. I assume Pen line, OMD, you know, TG, all those lines will continue with the new co, but maybe not. Yeah, it's hard to say, Wiki. You know, Olympus couldn't make enough money in the last 3 years. Will Jib develop it into a cheap camera segment or into a luxury? Why should they have more luck in a market that is shrinking every year? Well, they'll have to make some very systemic changes. Excuse me. To the cameras and offer some unique features that are a little bit more you know, offer something a little more unique or new to the camera industry, or improve on things that are there but need to be much better. But the average consumer, they're going to stick with their cell phone. You know, you know, photography is really for those of us that want to learn how to do exposure and learn how to, you know, compose our images and care about lighting and colors and monochromes. You know, we look at everything to get what we envision as an image, you know, as an artist or as a creative, but also as a as a general enthusiast photographer. You know, we enjoy capturing images to preserve our memories and things like that. And that's that's kind of the segment that cell phones have taken over, is capturing memories, right? And being able to share those. Because a camera phone does excellent at that. Whereas a regular camera will do better, but most people don't take the effort to learn how to really use the camera. You know, and I'm talking about the general consumer, not us that are here in the chat room. We're always trying to improve our skill set and improve our photography, right? So But yeah, the average person, it just doesn't fit their lifestyle. They want to just they have their phone with them, they take a picture and they share it. So that part of the segment of the market, I think, is forever gone to the cell phone and compact cameras. Uh, and that's why the compact camera market's gone. The more upscale cameras like the OMDs, even the pens, they are they're more niche now, I think, in terms of being more for people like us that want to really enjoy photography and do better photography and take better images. And for the professional, of course, that has to have better images, because just I can't imagine one day that advertising, like product photography, even architectural photography like I do, somebody's going to go out with a cell phone, take a picture, and that's going to be their that's going to be their work. I just can't see that right now. It just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, Lipsis is right. I haven't read the fine print. Like I said, and they can still back out if they want to. If they decide something in the financials is not going to work for them, the JIP can just say never mind. That's doesn't I don't think they would back out at this point unless and make this kind of announcement unless they were pretty sure they were going to buy it. But between now and September and December, they can probably, at least between now and September, they can still back out and say never mind, right? uh, no matter what happens, nothing we can do about it. We need a Steve Jobs for Olympus. Yeah, I don't know if we those kind of people still exist. There's some very unique individuals in history that we'll never see again, right? Steve Jobs, I think, was one of them. Same thing with like Bill Gates. Uh, if we're talking about tech industry, there's some people that we'll never see again, like the original guy that designed the Olympus pen and the OMDs. Those are very unique individuals in our history that hopefully someone like that comes along, but who knows. Those people are one in billions, in history. Bryce says, is the IS mechanism locked fixed when the camera is off, so as to prevent movement? It is not, at least on and I say that because I set my camera down without the lens on it, and I saw the sensor moving. But that was on my Panasonic. I never really paid attention, but I can check for you. This is my EM1 Mark III. I mean, the image stabilization is used by in Olympus case, I believe, by coils. No, it's moving. Yeah. And if I shake my camera gently, I can hear it moving. But it's held in place by coils, like electronic coils, like you see on a speaker or something. And if there's no electricity going into them, the thing just dangles. And there's certainly no springs moving the IBIS system to hold it in place, because that would put resistance on the IBIS mechanism, which you cannot have. So it definitely moves around when the camera's off. My Tani, where's that come from, Christopher? There happened in the middle 90s. Apple Computer. Oh, sorry, I read that. Just thinking a niche could save Olympus if, say, they made the perfect vlogging camera, could even enhance the M1 III firmware. Yeah, I love Olympus gear. I don't know if vlogging's the way to go. It's I don't think I think they need to stick to where their strengths are in their lenses and bodies. And then adding features like vlogging, there I don't think their lenses and body, that is not a suitable thing for. I mean, look at camera conspiracies. He's been searching for the perfect camera forever, and then finally he bought the Olympus, which he loves, and I think that's his perfect camera now, which is ironic. But for the average person, they're going to use their phone, for vlogging. It's just not a big enough market for people that want high quality, vlogging. Hmm. Roman's wondering how long the gear will last, assuming you take good care of it and don't drop it like I do. Um, and I think Jimmy Chang, I was watching one of his vlogs, but he has to update his camera every 2 to 3 years because he goes through so many shutter actuations. Um, he felt the need to upgrade or to, replace the gear that he had. And I think that's true for a lot of professionals that go through a lot of frames. I'm just a semi-enthusiast and I go through 20, 30,000 frames a year. I can only imagine, a true professional, especially sports action, where you're probably going through thousands of frames per day, which could go through 100,000, I mean, 400,000 shutter actuations a year. So you could easily burn through a camera yearly. Hi, Nature with Music. How are you? Welcome back. Phones are not good enough for travel, nor the Nikon Canon 800 millimeters. No. Yeah, Olympus definitely fit a perfect niche for travel photography. Because you'll get great images, better than your cell phone. And that was kind of Olympus's whole uh message was, to get out there. What was their message? See, their messaging's terrible. Even I can't remember it. But it was the idea of being able to take your camera out everywhere. Okay, let's see. Let me see if I can catch up here. Phones are not good for travel. I agree. Uh, Bob is here. Hey, Bob. Bryce, good. Leon is here. Roman. Leon says, agree, Rob. Average person, compensation, lighting, colors. Yeah, as long as they photo share. Most don't even use the basic phone editing. Yeah, it's true. It's like last night I went to my nephew's graduation. I actually couldn't attend the graduation, but we met later. But his mom and dad was showing me pictures on that they took with their cell phone, and they didn't use any of the filters or creative things. They just wanted to capture the moment and share that memory, right? And that's where cell phones are really strong, and all most people care about, right? uh, I think at the consumer level. The enthusiast market, meaning anybody that wants to do more than just capture a memory, like us, that's a very finite market right now because of cell phones. My point is that the MOU reads for joint venture and Nuco with JIP taking the risk. The same way I buy laptops. Yeah, I mean, laptops are a good example of uh, it doesn't matter what the brand is, right? We buy it for the specs and the capabilities that fit our needs. Like I'm shopping laptops right now, and size and weight is not as important as what kind of processing power and video processing power it has. The CPU and GPU and the cooling solution and all the technical things you look at when you buy laptops. If you're really into that, and I don't care about brand. I search for specific things that I need in the laptop, and then whatever brand has it, I'll look into it and say, okay, is the build quality halfway decent that if it's just going to sit on my desk, it's going to be okay. Versus if I was looking for a laptop that I was going to take with me everywhere, like a lot of kids do for gaming in college, you know, they take it to classes and things. I'd look for something more durable, and the technical specs would matter less over durability. And then you have to weigh in price, right? Because you can get one that has it all. It's super durable, has top end specs, but you're going to pay for it. You know, it's not going to be cheap. Yes, I love my EM5 Mark III, Terry. I took it out yesterday to my, you know, I took out yesterday my EM5 Mark III and my EM10 Mark II. Primarily the EM5 Mark III, I wanted to capture some memories of me with my nephew for his graduation. And I didn't want to use my cell phone, you know, because I wanted the better image to capture. So yeah, I still use it. It's kind of like my daily. It's mainly my daily, and I can't say daily anymore, but it's my go-to camera for vlogging and family things. You know, capture memory type things. The M10 I brought with me because I don't know if Serge is here, but I was hoping it'd be a clear night because Serge asked me about doing some astrophotography with the EM10 Mark II and a 17mm f1.8. So I brought it along with me just in case the opportunity arose, because out near we went out to the marina where there's a lot less light pollution than where I live here. And I said, well, this will be a good, you know, since I'm out here, I might as well see if I can capture some astrophotography. But it was too cloudy last night. So Sergio, if you're here, sorry, I couldn't do it. I tried to do some astro last night, but it was cloudy. And the moon was out. So that would have hampered some of the visibility too, even if there was no clouds. John Softly, how are you, John? I seem to be a lone voice saying that the COVID is a bigger threat to camera manufacturers than smartphones, especially if it hangs around for 2 or 3 years. Well, hopefully we'll have a vaccine by then. I mean, yeah, I mean, I think more to John's point is that life is bigger than camera brands and manufacturers and business in general, right? I mean, look how quickly life takes over and can destroy businesses in general of any industry. Uh, it's like life is bigger than our gear and companies, and it all it takes is like a microscopic, you know, organism or whatever it is, virus, a microscopic thing like that to destroy entire industries single-handedly. So and our reaction to it, you know, I guess it's not that by itself, but uh so who knows if something like that can take out, do the kind of damage that it's done worldwide. You know, anything can really. So life, you know, just remember that life is bigger than these companies, right? Just enjoy your life and get the most out of it that you can. Not sure how many outside of YouTubers vlog. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not walking around seeing vloggers every day, right? I see a lot of people doing selfies and things like that, but yeah, vlogging, no, not so much. Oh, my Tani was the main. Thank you, Christopher. I should know that, right? Yeah, that's why they named it the M, right, originally, and then there was some debate with Leica over that, so they called it the OM. But they put the M in OMD because of Yoshishi Maitani, right? Hopefully I pronounced that right. Olympus said they'll have an announcement in July. Okay, look forward to it. Yeah, Kevin. You know, iPhone. You know, cell phones are cameras, but they're not. They're not really for people. You know, I hate using my cell phone camera. Hoping for a price drop on the 60 f2.8. Yeah, I'm wondering. I'm wondering if there's going to be some stock liquidation at all. I would I would love to see that, but who knows what's in the agreement? They might say, you know, just sell as you normally do because we want to take over that stock. You know, that inventory is part of the assets, so don't sell it all off. Or they might say, you know, you need to reduce the assets because we can't take that much on, so reduce the assets. Who knows? You know, it's all speculation. Rick is saying people are buying phones, so they have less money to buy other stuff. That's true. Oh, John thinks cameras are still play a bigger role in capturing memories than cell phones. Um, that's a tough call. I think they're better at it because of the ability to share. So when you take it as if there was no social media, yeah, cell phones are terrible, right? They just would have very little purpose, but because of the social media aspect of cell phones, I think that those two things combined make it a better thing for capturing memories and sharing them. But individually, yeah, I would agree as a capture device only, yeah, there's no way they're even close to a camera. But it takes a little bit of there's a little bit of a learning curve for most people to get images that are better than their cell phone from a camera. Whereas a camera, you can maximize the capabilities pretty quickly. Whereas a camera, you know, it's like a lifetime journey to learn how to use a camera and get good images out of it. My choice option for traveling is my 40 to 150 Pro with the 1.4x and 2x teleconverter. Not too heavy, doesn't take as much space, and can then do 40 to 300 focal length. Yeah, that's a good range. People are always happy with their phones, but then when you take the picture with a pen, they're really surprised. Yeah. Yeah, people just don't appreciate what cameras can do as much. You know, they instantly take a picture and share it, and you know, there's a few filters that make things fancy, but uh that's another area. I think a lot of marketing, there was a little bit of a marketing fail in the camera industry in general. uh Only one Olympus became interest of another people who saw me with. Wiki saying only one Olympus became interest of other people who saw me with it. The Pen. Yeah. Okay, I understand what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, when I go out with the Pen F, I've been stopped. Stopped or quite. No, I wouldn't. Stopped is the wrong word, but people ask me, you know, in the street, you know, oh, what camera is that? Is that a film camera? Or, you know, yeah, definitely. Uh, oh no, you dropped your camera, Roman? Almost dropped it. Okay. Phew. Man. You know what's funny is I took my two cameras out yesterday and I forgot to bring the frickin' straps uh with on them. You know, I took the straps off because for the live streams, you know, sometimes I like to pick the cameras up and show you guys. But I take all the straps off my cameras. You know, I make these myself, but uh and then when I went out yesterday, I was like, oh, damn it, I don't have my straps. So I had to just hold my camera when we went to the restaurant, put it on a table, and just be very conscious of where I leave things. And Sturka says, so many times I've taken a picture with my cell phone and thought I wish I could have taken it with my real camera until I stopped thinking this. Cell phone cameras aren't even close. Yeah. Yeah, good enough suffices, Kevin. That's kind of the thing, you know, there's you know, the laptop market's kind of the same way. Uh you know, for me, I look at a lot of things before I buy a laptop. Whereas most people, you know, they just look for a couple of things. It's good enough. You know, just I don't want to spend more than, you know, $800 for a laptop, you know, $1,000 at most. Um, you know, whereas I'm looking at $2,000, $3,000 laptops, right? Very high end because, you know, I can appreciate all of the extra features and I'll be using them as well. But that's a whole different thing. Lipsa says, I looked at some of your Flickr and some of your photos were awesome. Oh, thanks. Especially two from memory, the composite on the mountain and the bus photo. Oh, the composite. Yeah, oh, yeah, I love that picture. I did a composite of all my camping that I did that year. Because then that composite image is actually why I started the robtrek YouTube channel and my website. Because I wanted to take more pictures of me and my adventures and traveling with my dog Riley. So in that composite, you'll see a dog in there. That's Riley, and but he was the inspiration for me to start robtrek, and that's hence the name of the channel. For those of you that don't know, the last name on the channel, Trek, right, is not my surname. Because someone asked me that last week, and I forgot to answer that. But it's not my real surname. Trek just means travel. It's just a similar, you know, it means the same thing. Trek and travel. Hence, like Star Trek, right? Star traveling, right? So Rob Trek, so it's Rob traveling. And I wanted to capture my adventures, right? My memories with camping and hiking with my buddy Riley, my dog at the time. I never intended it for it to become what it is today at the time, but he got very sick and passed away very quickly. So while I was taking care of him in his last, you know, few weeks, I just bought, you know, the Olympus Pen F, and I was switching from Nikon, and I couldn't, you know, there were some things on the Nikon that I really enjoyed that I said I wish the Pen F had, so I just made that video about how to reprogram the dials and buttons to be more like my Nikon operator, right, with the shutter mode dial. So if you look at the very first episode I ever made, it's kind of about the Pen F and assigning shutter mode dials. But anyhow, as for the composite, I was inspired by another video I saw on YouTube. I wish I could remember the guy's name, but he does nothing but composites commercially for advertising. So I watched one of his videos on how he did it, and it basically essentially involves taking a lot of images, layering them in Photoshop, resizing them, then doing cutouts, you know, and and blending things together. So you'll see a mountain picture. You'll see several images of me and my dog in that one picture, and then you'll see a waterfall. I mean, the waterfall was not part of the mountain. I just kind of put that in together, you know, in the composites. So if you want to learn how to do compositing, there's so many tutorials online, but essentially you need a software that can layer and stack images together, and then has really good some kind of, I forget what the tool is called, but it cuts out, you know, certain parts of the image so that you can overlay them in that image. I could not make a video on that myself. It's not it's not an area I'm good at, you know. I just happened to I probably spent, God, I think that image, I probably spent about 20 hours on it, you know, making it. It took me a long freaking time. But, you know, I have a Flickr page where if you guys are curious what that image is, maybe I'll pull it up if I get a chance. Oh, wow, I'm way behind. Man, there's so many people here. I rarely have this many people here. And thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Mike is so generous. Every week he makes a donation like this, and I'm so grateful. What's the total actuation's lifetime? Oh, it depends on the camera, Hans. You know, the lower end cameras, they say 100,000. You know, the higher end cameras like the M1 Mark III, 400,000 is the expected lifetime. You know, people obviously get more, some get less, but I think you can generally expect more than that from your camera. For me, I'll probably, I don't, I'll have to see what my shutter count is on my cameras. I don't think I've hit 100,000 on any of them because I have so many. If I only had one camera, I'd be well over 100,000 by now. And people are always happy with phone. Okay. So many times I've taken a picture. Yes. I'm just trying to catch up here. Bob is saying that from a proper camera's point of view, the problem with phones is people always have their phone with them. Yeah. The best camera is the one that comes with you. Definitely. Tried to take some shots with my phone yesterday, but the sun was shining on the screen and I could not see a thing. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's so many times I go out and I see people trying to take a picture with their phone, and because they don't understand photography, like they were trying to take, you know, the most typical scene I see where people have a problem with is with backlighting, right? That there's this beautiful overlook or vista on the, you know, on these mountains, right? And there's these places you can pull off in Shenandoah and look at this gorgeous view. So, you know, this couple or family will stand with this beautiful vista behind them, and then the person takes a picture with their cell phone and the people are almost silhouette, and then the background is all properly exposed, right? Because the camera just sees too much light. And they just could not understand how to make that picture work, you know? And if they knew anything about photography, they could probably still get something out of that phone that was acceptable. But that's, you know, that's just so, and that's the thing is some of them might get so frustrated they'll go out and buy you know, a real camera, and they still get the same dark image, right? Like, why are the people still dark? You know, why did I just spend $1,000 on this camera and I still can't get, you know, the people not silhouetted to the background? And it's because there's a learning curve to photography. You have to have some basic skill sets. You know, fortunately, the camera has some tools that automatically do things like face detect, will focus on the face and expose for the face properly. And that offsets some of the errors that people can run into. But like I said, that learning curve for people is, you know, people just want things to be like this, right? Just push a button and work. They didn't buy the camera to learn photography. They bought the camera because they wanted to get better images, but they're not going to put any more effort into it than just pushing a button. And that's part of the problem with digital camera industry is they sell you on these beautiful images you can take with the picture with the camera. And the cell phone cameras do the same thing. The cell phone companies, they show these beautiful images taken by professional photographers, and then the average person gets them and they can't do the same thing, right? And that's unfortunate. I know, more than 200 people, right, Roman? I'm so flattered. You guys are awesome. Uh, the younger generation, you don't think they'll ever care? It's possible. It's possible. The only people that have any concern for the cameras are people that want to learn more about photography, right? So they look into, why is a dedicated camera better than, say, your cell phone? What can I do with that I can't do with my cell phone? But those people are far and few between, I think. They just look at an expensive camera and expect it to take better pictures, and then when they use it, they're like, I can do the same thing with my cell phone. I'm like, well, yeah, you can, but there's so much more to it. I mean, why do you think a camera has, you know, a dozen or more physical buttons and dials? Uh, it's not there just for, you know, for looks, right? They're all functional and have a purpose for being there. Do MFT have budget wide angle zooms? No, those are hard to find, Prasant. The cheapest wide angle zoom, it might be like the 9-18 from from Olympus, which is still $500 or $600. Those are tough. Your best bet, if you want a wide angle, is probably a third-party manual focus, and you don't have to be really good at manual focus. You just have to just kind of know a little bit what you're doing, and you can get good images out of a third-party manual focus wide angle, and those will set you back $200 or less. I have a 8mm fisheye lens that I paid like $60 or $70 for, and I have a couple of videos on it. It's a Pixco 8mm, and you can do fisheye distortion correction and stuff in post-processing, but so you can get wide angles for cheap, but you have to go third-party manual focus. But if you want something from Olympus, the only one that comes to mind is the 9-18, and that's still up there in price, right? I don't know if Panasonic offers anything wide and cheap. I'm not as familiar with their lenses. And Rick says, I spent over 10 years when my cameras never left my side. On rare occasions, I didn't have my camera. I'd have a panic attack. I know, I don't feel right. If I leave the house without my camera, even if I don't plan on taking pictures, I feel still like I don't want to miss an opportunity, because as a lot of you know, I'm a very opportunistic photographer. You know, I rarely plan to go out and take pictures. I'm just always ready. I always want the best camera with me, you know? So I know how that feels. Yeah, people need to at least learn the basics. And that's why there's a lot of thousands of poor, mediocre images. And the sad thing is, it doesn't, the poor and mediocre images are good enough for a lot of people, you know? They're not interested in photography, which is fine, you know, people have other interests. But that's how it is. But the thing is, people nowadays wanted to post social media right away. Even my husband would rather buy a cell phone than a proper camera. Huh. Yep. Yeah, and that goes back to what Rick was saying earlier, that that once you buy a cell phone, which is really multi-purpose, not just a camera, right? That there's not always money or budget. There's not a budget for something else. I mean, you could spend the money, but I'm just saying you don't budget for two things. Two things. Usually budget for one thing. Okay, this is my budget for this, and I'm gonna buy a cell phone this year instead of a camera. And if it was true that youngsters don't care about photography, then why is it the biggest selling point on new smartphones? You know, is their camera? Yeah, so smartphones, yeah, one of the biggest marketing points of cell phones is the camera and the system. And it's not that people don't care about photography. I'm saying they don't care to learn more about photography than what their cell phone cameras can do. So I'm not saying uh, people, and it's not just younger people, but I'm just saying that I don't think people care to learn more about photography than pushing a button and sharing the image, and the images they get are good enough, even if it's mediocre. If they really cared, you know, they would take the time to use their cell phone and explore what even a cell phone camera is capable of, because you can still take images, you know. You can still do all of the things with a cell phone that you can with a DSLR in terms of composition and to some extent exposure control, things like that, like, you know, exposure compensation. You know, messing with the ISO and aperture, those two things are pretty much irrelevant in a cell phone because there's not any aperture or uh, ISO to worry about, really. But people just don't understand all of those elements that go into having a real camera, and they don't care to. So that's what I mean. They don't care to learn about all the other things. That was funny. Buy an expensive camera and it must take better photos. Yeah. Don't forget the body cap lenses. Yeah, I use lens hoods. I rarely use a body cap lens. Or what? A lens cap, I should say. And this, oh, Roman says the 7 Artisans and Camlin are make good manual lenses for $100 to $200. Okay, I don't have those lenses, but I've heard good things about them. I would have a problem shooting some animals and insects with my iPhone. Yeah. You know, so people buy those little attached lenses, right? Macro attachments, telephoto attachments, and I think there is a good audience for people that want to expand photography on their cell phones. But to expand that to spending another $1,000-$2,000 on a camera, that's a big nut to swallow for a lot of people. Yeah, the younger generation, they you know, they have other interests. They don't want to learn photography to the extent of actually investing into $1,000-$2,000 cameras, even $500. You know, if they, and I think, you know, the EM10 Mark II, the Mark III, that series right there, some of the Pen EPL8s, but those series cameras were in that price range, right? $500 or less. Certainly they are now, but at launch time they were a little bit over and under that price. And those were the number one selling cameras in Japan, right? The Pen EPL8, I think, for a little while, or in the top 10 anyway. You know, so the price point is very important too, to breaking into a younger generation. But anyway, expensive watches tell better time. They're certainly more accurate. You know, if we're talking about mechanical watches, if we're talking about quartz watches, yeah, you have to spend just a fraction more to get a more accurate quartz watch. But most quartz watches are pretty accurate. You know, I've got some, you know, $15 quartz watches that are still within a minute or two after a couple of months, right? They're only off by a minute or two. And then I have my Swiss-made quartz watch, which is probably within 10 seconds after a couple of months of time. Only off just 10 seconds instead of a couple of minutes on the quartz watches. And over a year's time, you know, 5 minutes at most on any watch at any price. Mechanical watches, on the other hand, they can be off by several minutes a day on the cheap end, and then, you know, less than a minute per month on the high end. And I think the Seiko Grands are, you know, maybe a minute per year. They're even more accurate than that. But I don't know why we're talking about, I love watches. I don't know why we're talking about watches. I guess somebody brought it up here. Hi, Rob from France. I just bought the EPL9, which is just as nice as an everyday camera, but the grip is too thin for me. Do you know how to fix this issue? I cannot find an external. Ooh, yeah, I've never done that with I've never got a grip for my EPL8. I've always used it as it is. I sorry, I don't have a solution for you. Yes, nature. The 8mm fisheye 1.8 is very interesting. And you know, I see a $15. Whoever did that, thank you so much. It says here, I look over, oh, Terry Lovejoy. Thank you very much, Terry. I really appreciate that. Hi, Rob from, oh, wait, let me, let me see. I'm 8 minutes behind here. You can get good photos from phones if you know what you're doing. Yes. um, Yeah, like I said, that's a lot of the phone companies, they have professional photographers take pictures with them and then market their phones, how great the cameras are in the phone. There's plenty of YouTube videos of people using their cell phone versus a DSLR. But they're professional photographers, so they can get, good results, and they'll show the differences between a DSLR and a phone. But then people are like, well, I don't need to spend another $1,000, $2,000, because this guy just took a picture with a cell phone that looks just as good, to my eyes, right? But yeah, the average person picking up any kind of photographic equipment, whether it's a cell phone or a camera, they're going to run into the same challenges that they do anybody. They have to learn photography. Any clue what the next best weather sealing camera system is? Just got the M1 Mark III, 12 to 100 for hiking, backpacking, but I don't think I want to invest in the future diversity of Olympus lenses. Yeah, I don't know. The very high end cameras from any of the manufacturers supposedly have better weather sealing. They claim weather sealing on a lot of their camera bodies, and I'm referring back to an article I read about Canon, where they asked the Canon rep, it was an article or an interview with a Canon rep. You claim that the lower end bodies, I forget what they were at the time, the camera model numbers, but it would be like, you can't claim this, $500 camera, $800 camera has weather sealing, and your high end 1DX or whatever cameras have weather sealing. What's the difference? And he went on to explain that there's different levels of weather sealing. The weather sealing in our high-end cameras are much better than they are on the low-end cameras, which would make sense. But since there's not a weather sealing rating, so to speak, they're starting to put, at least Olympus had started to rate their cameras IPX1, IPX whatever. And Olympus is well renowned for its weather sealing, particularly in the camera bodies. But as far as I know right now, you have to go pretty high end on other brands to get decent weather sealing. Whereas with Olympus, yeah, you buy their high end cameras, the OMDs, the M5 Mark II, 3, the M1 Mark II and 3. But those are all top-notch weather sealed, quality built cameras, relatively speaking, to the very best that any manufacturer has. I think it was Imaging Resource. I think they're shutting down this year, but Imaging Resource, excuse me, was one of the few, imagingresource.com, they're one of the few online resources for where they do weather sealing testing, of various cameras, and the Olympus won every time. But they do comparisons, so you can look to that channel to kind of get a feel for which brands did better than others. Olympus always won, but going forward, if you want to think about another brand, that might be a good resource. Imagingresource.com. There might be a hyphen in between there. Yeah, let's stay positive, Too Old for Toys. It can be a new beginning. Wow, let me read and talk faster here. Honestly, I think camera companies have failed the younger generation with lack of side-by-side marketing of regular cameras versus cell phones. That's an interesting thought. What if Olympus started selling cell phones? or you know, Leica, they've done a couple of collaborations with cell phone companies. Like they used to, I think they collaborated with Nokia, maybe? I don't know. It didn't work out though. Lauren says your grip on the PL9 will get used to it. Okay. Our camera manufacturing spending too much on R&D. We have great cameras. Why not reduce R&D rates and spend to make more photography more affordable than longer product life? I don't know. I have to give that some thought. Your granddaughter's interested in photo and video. Okay, so there's still hope. Yeah, there's always people still interested. You know, my nephews have were interested initially, right? Not because of me, but they were. And I used to go on photo walks with my nephews, taking pictures. But as they got older, this is when they were like 11 or 12. Now they're full-on teenagers, right? uh, they totally lost interest. My first camera was a Brownie. Oh my God. Let me tell you, the smartphone is an advanced image quality. Yeah, of course. And there's Terry. Terry, lunch on me. Belated thanks for your flash tutorial. Thank you, Terry. I should do some more flash tutorials, right? Maybe the M10 Mark III should have been full auto with no dials and no settings. And no learning curve. Interesting. That would have really pissed off some EM10 owners, Mark II owners. That would have probably pissed off a lot of Olympus owners in general. They'll be like, where is Olympus going with this? That's why marketing is not easy, right? You know, you have your established base or audience, and you're trying to attract a new audience potentially. You know, what do you release? You should release a whole separate line, which is what I think the pen line should have been. It should have been more of a point and shoot, but high quality point and shoot. I'm optimistic about Olympus sale, but the fact that my first real camera was a Yashica's is not a good omen. It's funny. I was looking at some Yashica film cameras, the Electro or something, I think it was. Maybe I'm getting them confused. I saw one at a thrift sale for like, they wanted like $30 for it. I should have got it. For 30 bucks, it makes a nice shelf piece if it didn't work. But I ended up buying something else. Yeah, Chris, a lot of people do spend a lot of time in post-processing. And that's part of the fun sometimes, right? I'm more of a get it right in the field or do the best you can in the field, and if you have to, you really have to shoot very differently if you intend on post-processing. Because of the things you can do in post-processing are very different than what you can do in camera. So there's definitely times when I go out where I always try to capture the image I want in camera as is, but then I'll run into some scenes where I'm like, you know, if I take the pictures this way, like bracketing or focus stack or whatever, you know, with the intent to post-process, I take a very different image. But my intent is always to try to capture best I can in camera. But yeah, I do run into scenes where I don't have a choice, or I want to capture the scene in a way that you can only do with post-processing, but you have to take the picture differently in camera. And a lot of time that means, you know, that's when you start throwing in all these techniques like exposing to the right, exposing to the left, bracketing, focus stacking, you know, off-camera flash. There's so many techniques in photography that require post-processing and will give you the image that you want. All right, let's see. This is why I love Pen F and X Pro, you can do it all in camera and skip a lot of post-processing. Yeah, definitely. That's that's the thing about why I still love the Pen F, is because it does give me a lot of controls that I can use and capture it in camera. Because it's very different when you see things with your naked eye and then capture it and see what you get in the camera, versus, okay, I'm just going to capture the raw or bracket, then go back and take it in post-processing. And then when you get home, you're not there anymore. You're not seeing it with your own eyes anymore. And that's kind of the gap for me between taking a picture in the field versus taking one and doing post-processing, is I'm not there anymore. And I can't remember exactly what it was I saw. You know, I might have forgot, you know, the beautiful highlights and the colors that I saw in the sky. And then when I get home for post-processing, you know, I totally forget about that, or not able to recover that, because I didn't capture the image correctly in the field. So you have to be, that's why I like the Pen F, is because I can really control a lot of the things and say, I captured this with a JPEG the way I wanted it, and I have the raw image so that if I want to expand on that more, I can do so in post-processing. But I might not necessarily capture it correctly if I just captured the raw with the and not. Anyway, you get the idea. I like to be in the field when I capture the image and get it as close as I can, and then only expand on it if I need to with post-processing. Cell phones do a good job with panoramas, yes. I've seen some. You don't think fish see properly. Let's see, Roman has a message here about the grip for the EPL8. I can't read it. It's kind of in German. I can't really bad photographs with my... No one mentions sensor size in regard to mobile phones. Yeah, it's a little bit, it's not, you have to really dig for it in specs. You know, like I think DxOMark tells you what size it is, but it's not really talked about much. You can learn photography or any skill, but results still vary. May not top those born with eye for art. Yes. I was reading a comment by Tony. I can't repeat it though. Hi Rob, what's the future hold for Olympus Workspace? I think it's the same as the OMD brand. You know, I don't know, honestly. It works right now and it's fine. Hopefully they expand on it, but who knows? A Samsung S20 with 108 megapixels. I have not watched a single thing on that. I saw a couple of thumbnails about it on YouTube, but I haven't bothered to watch it because I'm not going to buy a phone for photography. So I just don't care what phones offer in terms of photography. Image resourcing was taken over by another company. Oh, really? I didn't know that. R&D is usually written off, small part of overhead except for pharma. Okay. Why Olympus seems putting more efforts in photocentric cameras like Nikon, who is losing more customers. I wish Olympus beats Panasonic in video spec like log profiles, 4K 60. Yeah, some people want it all, right? You want excellent photography, right? The autofocusing system and everything in Olympus, but then you want also the kind of specs that Panasonic can do with the same sensor, basically. Again, you know, shooting log 4K 60, you know, if you're going to be 10-bit 422, man, those are humongous files. You're going to, you know, that's why I like the Blackmagic Cinema camera. You don't buy SD cards or CF cards for that. You buy SSD drives, right? That, like, you put in a laptop, you buy like a 1 terabyte SSD drive and attach it to the camera to record video at that kind of level. And that makes more sense to me than buying a Panasonic and trying to do the same thing on an SD card. You know, there's a handful of enthusiasts that, yeah, they'll buy a 512 meg card and use it to record at those high-end specs. And I think that's a very tiny market. Most of those guys are going to go more upscale and buy red cameras and things like that that can handle high-res specs. And they have the back end, the production machines, laptops or desktops to manage that kind of video spec and do kind of editing. That's more professional grade type footage. The 422 10-bit video, you know, that's not for the casual consumer market. If Panasonic fails to compete with Sony for vlogging, it may give up on MFT. Oh my god, that G100. I watched yesterday or last night a review on the G100 by Dave and Jordan. Oh my god. Or Chris and Jordan, I'm sorry. Wow, what a disaster for vlogging. What a terrible camera. My first hands-on camera is when I tried to take a dinosaur picture on my TV, print it out and sell it. That's hilarious. Take a picture from a movie on your TV screen and then try to print it out on t-shirts and sell it to your friends. That's funny. Or you just print them out, not even on a t-shirt. I automatically think t-shirt when I think kids. Yeah, I don't know what Jip's gonna do. I think they're definitely gonna trim the line down to just a couple of cameras, but who knows what direction they'll go in. All right, I need to wrap it up here soon. I'm sorry if I missed anybody's questions. I have my photo editing stream that I do with Olympus Workspace. I may do some Lightroom edits today too, because I saw a couple of the images that came in that Workspace is not going to be able to deal with. But that's next after this one. So you'll have to go back to my channel page to see the link for the live photo editing stream where you submit your pictures. And I just edit them in live for you. And then I put out my own picture for you guys to edit. And then send those in and let me see what you did with them. I'm always curious. But usually the pictures I give you are a challenge, right? They're not images that, you know, are easily cropped and edited to get a decent look out of it. I put out images that are a little bit difficult, but there's still an image there, right? 10F Pro bells and whistles. Oh, that would have been nice. Yeah, I would have bought it even if it costs. I wouldn't buy it regardless of price, but I would have paid a pretty penny for it if it came out. But all right, thanks everyone for coming in today. And hopefully you'll join me for the live editing stream as well. But either way, thanks for coming in, and hopefully we'll see you again next week. I'll be back on Thursday for our normal photography chat.